Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video. So the Horus Heresy Black Library series as we know it has finally come to an end. With the release of The End and the Death Volume 3 by Dan Abnett, we have kind of seen the climax of what has been an 18-year journey for so many of us, starting all the way back in 2006. But while people continue to kind of reflect on what the connotations of that story are, how it impacts potentially the 41st millennium, which we will talk about in this video, the conversation has started to go towards what could be the next big Black Library series. And a lot of people are kind of settling on the Great Scouring. So in this video, I just want to talk a little bit more about that and where that potentially might come into play. But before I do, I just want to reflect on the journey we've all been on. Again, Horus Rising came out on the 25th of April 2006. And I remember picking up that book when I was quite a bit younger, needless to say. And little did I know just how expansive that Black Library series was going to be. I don't think any of us expected how big it was going to be. But during that time, we've not just found out about the main characters, Horus, the Emperor, the Primarchs, the main Astartes in the battles that we saw play out, but we've also met a lot of mortal and, dare I say, immortal characters along the way who are not only going to play a role in the Horus Heresy setting as it continues to kind of play out and we continue to play it on the tabletop, but also potentially have an impact on the 41st millennium. But at the end of the day, just looking back at what this series was, I think it was nothing less than an odyssey for the whole Warhammer setting. It's had so many books, been through so many authors writing and fleshing out this backstory. I just think there's almost nothing like it, and it really does stand out potentially in all of fiction for what it's achieved and how expansive it's been. But at the same time, we've also seen some incredible revelations come out of this series, particularly in the later books, and I'm not going to spoil anything here just in case you haven't read them yet for yourself, but those revelations included the ultimate fate of Horus Lupercal and the decision to put the Emperor on the Golden Throne. Was that a good idea or not? And even some characters having literal revelations about what the next 10,000 years had in store and how that was beginning to affect them. Ultimately, there was so much in this series, and particularly The End and the Death, that impacts the setting of Warhammer 40k, and I think we'll see these stories not only become more relevant, but also kind of a foundation for those future stories in the 41st millennium as we see theories like the Star Child and the Dark King continue to play out and become more relevant to where the current characters and setting are going. And now people are starting to wonder what the next big Black Library series will be, and are settling on the idea that the Great Scouring will be a natural follow-on to what we've just had. For those of you who don't know, the Great Scouring is the chapter in the Imperium's history directly following the Horus Heresy. Horus has been killed, the traitor legions have been scattered, and the Imperium, having mustered what remains of its forces around Terra, are now on the counter-offensive, and they want to not only reclaim the territories that they've lost, but also punish the Astartes and the remaining Primarchs, or the traitor Primarchs that is, for having stepped out of line in the way that they have. And while the Black Library series has changed some elements around the Horus Heresy, there are some incredible ones that we could expect to see in a Great Scouring series, including the Iron Cage, where the Imperial Fists go up against the Iron Warriors in a really brutal conflict. We also see the traitor homeworlds completely levelled with Exterminator's weapons, including Colchis, Barbarus, Chthoniya and Chemos. And the Night Lords, for example, just kind of keep doing their thing. They're a great source of horror even on the retreat. But at the same time, I think there are some really important plot points that help to bridge us over into the story of the 41st millennium. Rabute Gilliman being mortally wounded by Fulgrim, the Lion disappearing in his hunt for the Fallen, and Jagatai Khan disappearing into the Webway. These are stories that could be told in the Great Scouring, and while they're not necessarily going to reveal a lot about what those characters got up to, the latter two that is, I think it will help to paint a picture and lay the foundations for maybe their return in the 41st millennium, or at the very least just be a really interesting look into what those characters were thinking and doing just before they disappeared. And they're not the only ones that we want to hear a little bit more about. But I also want to see more of how Abaddon takes on his role as the Despoiler, and those of you who have read The End and the Death Volume 3 will know how that plays a pivotal role in the revelations of one particular character. But for that matter, I also want to see how the various Chaos Champions deal with the fact that their various legions are splintering apart into the warbands that we now know in Warhammer 40k. I think it's just such an interesting lens with which to view the traitor legions, and it can make for some really exciting storytelling. So collectively, I think the Scouring could offer a really great insight into the thoughts and kind of the emotions that the Imperium were going through as they pursued the traitor legions back towards the Eye of Terror, and really showcasing some of those final conflicts the traitors kind of tried to hold their own even while they were on the run. But at the same time, I do think it could open up a whole new narrative universe potentially to play on the tabletop. For example, we could maybe play some of these campaigns. The Iron Cage, for example, would be a tremendous campaign to play with Horus Heresy miniatures. But at the same time, it could also open up the room for new tabletop miniatures altogether. Maybe the more corrupted Astartes legions and some of the more nuanced units that they had right after the Horus Heresy, or maybe just some of the loyalist Primarchs to show off what they were like and how they looked immediately following the Siege of Terror. And it could be just a really great way to introduce some new campaigns and models, but to also build on what we already have in the existing Horus Heresy tabletop game. And I think that's something that not only Games Workshop, but existing fans would really love to see. But at the same time, while we're all reflecting on the revelations from The End and the Death, I think Games Workshop and Black Library will want to reflect on the success of the series as a whole. Again, it's been an 18-year journey for us, and there have been so many books and so many Black Library authors contributing to this story that they'll probably want to think about whether it achieved what it set out to do all the way back in 2006. For example, has every book been a commercial success? And has it kind of gone the way of a shonen manga series where it's now so broad and there is so much content to this story that it's now inaccessible to new fans? I think that's something that Black Library is going to have to take a few years to think about, but if they can improve on the things that perhaps weren't so great while focusing on the things that were really good, then I think that will create a new blueprint for telling these enormous sagas right across the Warhammer franchises, and that's something I think we're going to really appreciate at the end of the day. The other thing is that we're still telling a lot of these stories on the tabletops of the Horus Heresy. We're always getting new campaigns and new models for the bigger scale game, and now we've got Legions Imperialis that is helping us to live and breathe some of those massive battles on a truly epic scale. And I just think that Games Workshop might feel that trying to tell the story of the Great Scouring while they're continuing to flesh out these other two games might just feel like a bit of a distraction, and they might prefer to wait until they've produced more campaigns and a ton more models, and then when the community feels like it's ready for something new, to pivot in that new direction. Again, Games Workshop's business model is all about selling the models, and I can't help but feel that that will be the deciding factor for when they're ready to embark on a brand new saga. So with all that in mind, I do agree with a lot of people that what we might see instead is a bit of an epilogue to the Horus Heresy, a wrap up following the end and the death, where we see what characters do immediately after the siege, how things get kind of tidied up, and how characters set themselves up for what will happen in the Great Scouring down the line. I think that will kind of scratch the itch for now, but it doesn't mean that Games Workshop and Black Library, more importantly, commit to anything too big too early. After all, I think after the last 18 years, they probably deserve a bit of a break, and I'm sure they've got other great projects to start working on. So those are just a few of my thoughts about the Great Scouring being the next big potential Black Library series. Again, more than anything else, I think we just need a bit of time to rest and reflect on what we've been through for the last 18 years, because it's been a monumental achievement, not just for Games Workshop and Black Library, but also all of us fans who love to see these Warhammer universes brought to life. It's been a heck of a journey, and I just can't wait to see what's coming next. But what are your thoughts? Did you enjoy the Horus Heresy series? What were the good and bad points about it, and what are you looking forward to next? Are you thinking about the Great Scouring, the Age of Apostasy, or something else altogether? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And as always, a big thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed the video, please do click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to join me for future Warhammer videos, and I do hope to see you for my next one. But until then, take care.